November 1st of 1980, patrol units with the Walker County Sheriff's Office were dispatched out to a body that was found on the side of IH-45 at approximately the 123-mile marker. My name is Thomas Bean. I'm a lieutenant with the Walker County Sheriff's Department, and I am the primary investigator on the Walker County Jane Doe murder case.
Around 9:30 in the morning on November 1st, 1980, a truck driver was heading north on Interstate 45 through East Texas when he saw something that would haunt investigators for the next 4 decades. A body on the shoulder of the road 20 feet from the asphalt. The girl was naked. Next to her lay a pair of red high heels, still gleaming in the morning light. Around her neck was a single piece of jewelry, a gold chain with a smoky blue rectangular pendant. She had no identification. Nobody knew who she was. Within hours, the medical examiner made a grim assessment. She'd been dead for approximately 6 hours. The cause: strangulation, sexual assault. Dumped on the side of one of Texas's busiest highways, her body left for anyone to find. Nobody came forward. No frantic parents, no missing person reports. No desperate family searching the hospitals. For days, then weeks, the girl remained a ghost. The investigators worked backwards from the body. Sketches, fingerprints, photographs distributed to missing persons databases across the country. Nothing matched. No one claimed her. By the end of November 1980, the case had already gone cold. October 31st, 1980. Halloween night in Huntsville, Texas. A teenage girl arrived at a truck stop near Interstate 45. She was wearing a white knit sweater and yellow pullover, blue jeans. She asked the manager for directions. She wanted to know how to get to the Ellis unit, a nearby prison farm. She told them her name was from Rockport, Texas. This was a lie, or at least not the full truth. She wasn't from Rockport, but investigators wouldn't know the truth for 41 years. She was 14 years old. Her name was Sherri Jarvis. She was born on March 9, 1966 in Stillwater, Minnesota, and she had run away from home in early 1980, months before she died on a Texas roadside. When she was 13, the state of Minnesota removed her from her family's home. Her crime: habitual truancy. She skipped school repeatedly. Her last contact with her family came as a letter postmarked from Denver, Colorado, in August 1980. She told her mother she would return home. She never did. By October, she was in Texas. No one knows exactly how she got there. No one knows who she traveled with or what she was looking for. The official story is that she was hitchhiking. On Halloween night, she was asking strangers for directions to a prison in Texas. They were the last people to see her alive. The next morning, she was dead. Authorities interviewed employees at the truck stop. The workers there remembered her, a girl, nervous, asking odd questions. But they couldn't identify who she was. Investigators reached out to Rockport. No missing girls, no connection. They contacted the Ellis Unit prison. No one there had seen her. The leads evaporated as quickly as they'd appeared. By January 1981, she was still nameless. By January 1981, she was buried. The Walker County Sheriff's Office gave her a grave at Oakwood Cemetery in Huntsville. The headstone read, "Unidentified white female, no birth date, no name." For the next 19 years, Walker County Jane Doe was forgotten. Files were boxed up. The case was officially closed. There was only a body and a mystery and a grave that no one visited. Then, in 1999, someone decided to try again. Detectives exhumed her remains. Maybe new technology could help. Maybe DNA testing had advanced enough. They extracted bone samples, tissue samples, anything with genetic material. They ran tests. They checked databases. They waited for matches that never came. The technology of 1999 was sophisticated, but it had limits. Standard DNA testing could identify a person if there was something to match it against. A family member in a database, a suspect's sample, a reference point. But if no one was looking for Jane Doe, if no family had reported her missing, if the database was empty of possibilities, then DNA couldn't help. So she waited again. In a grave, in a file, in the back of a detective's mind. Through the 2000s and 2010s, Jane Doe became the subject of obsessive amateur detectives. Online forums dedicated themselves to unsolved cases. People who would never know her submitted theories. Artists created facial reconstructions. In 2012, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released an updated sketch of what she might have looked like. In 2015, another one. Both circulated nationally. Both led nowhere. But something changed in 2015. A new detective was assigned to the case. His name was Tom Bean. He was not convinced the case was unsolvable. He had energy where others had given up. He had time where others had moved on, and he refused to call it a cold case. "I never liked to refer to this case as a cold case," Bean would later say. For him, it had always been open, always active, always demanding. He spent his next 6 years doing what detectives do when they have no good leads. He eliminated possibilities. He obtained DNA from dozens of missing girls across the country. One by one, he ruled them out. Not her, not her, not her. Each exclusion was a small death. Each not her meant Jane Doe was still Jane Doe. But Bean never stopped looking. And in 2020,
Something would change everything.
the turning point came on a call. In July 2020, Detective Bean received unexpected contact from a lab in the Woodlands, Texas called Othram. The company had been following his case. They specialized in analyzing DNA so degraded, so damaged, so minimal that traditional testing couldn't touch it. Their method was called forensic-grade genome sequencing. When you submit DNA to a standard testing company, like 23andMe or Ancestry.com, they extract thousands of nanograms of genetic material from a mouth swab. Jane Doe's body had been in the ground for 40 years. Environmental exposure, bacterial breakdown, natural degradation had destroyed most of her DNA. When the 1999 exhumation occurred, the skeletal remains had been further compromised. The bones were too degraded to yield anything usable. But there was one thing left: a tissue sample. Brain tissue, preserved in formaldehyde from the original autopsy in 1980. The formaldehyde had chemically damaged the DNA, but some genetic material remained. Othram's team had to work with nanogram quantities, microscopic amounts, the smallest DNA samples ever used to crack a case, and they had the tools to do it. Othram's proprietary technology could extract genetic material from damaged tissue. Multiple rounds of testing could gather enough information to build a genealogical profile, a comprehensive genetic fingerprint that could be cross-referenced against public genealogy databases, the kind populated by millions of amateur genealogists who'd uploaded their own DNA to trace family trees. The tissue was sent to Othram's laboratory. The scientists went to work. It took months, multiple rounds of extraction, damage remediation, genetic reconstruction. But by March 2021, they had built a family tree from Jane Doe's DNA. Not her family tree exactly, that would be impossible, but a genetic map that pointed toward her relatives. The genealogy team at Othram identified 6 people who shared significant genetic material with her. Their names went to Detective Bean. 6 potential relatives, probably parents, siblings, or aunts and uncles. Tom Bean had work to do. He began the painstaking process of researching these 6 people. Online databases, social media, public records. He tracked them down, called them, explained that he'd found a body in 1980, unidentified for 41 years, and her DNA suggested a genetic connection to their family. Could they help? Most didn't respond, but one did. When Bean found Sherri Jarvis's siblings, everything changed. Yes, they said, we had a sister who disappeared in 1980. Her name was Sherri Ann Jarvis. She ran away from home in the spring of that year. They lost contact with her. She sent a letter from Denver. After that, nothing. Years passed. They assumed the worst, but they never knew for certain. They never had closure. A DNA sample from one of Sherri's living relatives was submitted for confirmation testing. It matched. 41 years after Sherri Ann Jarvis died on the shoulder of Interstate 45, after being buried under a blank headstone, the mystery was solved. The Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences made the official confirmation. On November 9, 2021, Walker County Sheriff Clint McRae held a press conference. He announced that Walker County Jane Doe was Sherri Ann Jarvis, age 14, from Stillwater, Minnesota. Before the public announcement, the family was notified privately. Sherri's family released a statement. We lost Sherri more than 41 years ago, and we've lived in bewilderment every day since, until now as she has finally been found. She was a tender 13 years of age when the state removed her from our home for habitual truancy. Sherri never returned to our home as promised in a letter we received from her shortly after her departure. Our parents passed away never knowing what happened to her, or having any form of closure. Sherri Ann Jarvis was a daughter, sister, cousin, and granddaughter. She loved children, animals, and horseback riding. She was deprived of so many life experiences as a result of this tragedy. On March 9, 2022, what would have been Sherri's 56th birthday, Her family gathered at Oakwood Cemetery in Huntsville, Texas. They placed a new headstone on her grave. It read her name. It read her dates. March 9, 1966, November 1, 1980. But even as Sherri was finally being laid to rest with her name intact, another mystery remained. Who killed her? Identifying Sherri Ann Jarvis answered one question. Who is she? It did not answer another. Who did this to her? 41 years later, Sherri's killer remains unknown. Detective Tom Bean didn't stop working when Sherri was identified. If anything, the identification gave his work new direction. Now that they knew who she was, they could explore new angles. They could contact people who'd known her. They could investigate whether she'd had contact with anyone else in Texas. They could reconstruct her final days more clearly. The DNA evidence had been preserved. Tissue samples from the crime scene still existed. The autopsy report was detailed. The cause of death was clear. Asphyxia by ligature strangulation. But the identity of the person who applied that ligature, who put his hands around a 14-year-old girl's neck and squeezed until she stopped breathing, that remained a blank space. What we know about Sherri's final hours is limited but crucial. She arrived at a truck stop on Halloween night, October 31st, 1980. She was alone. She asked employees for directions to the Ellis Unit prison. She claimed to be from Rockport, Texas. She was wearing a white sweater, a yellow pullover, and blue jeans. She had red high heels that she'd leave behind when she died. Someone offered her a ride, or convinced her to get in a car, or physically forced her. We don't know which. By the next morning, she was dead. The medical examiner estimated time of death around 3:30 a.m. on November 1st. That gave authorities a window, Halloween night into early morning. Somewhere in that window, Sherri met her killer. Was it someone she knew? A stranger who approached her at the truck stop? Someone she trusted? A truck driver? A local? The evidence didn't yield answers. No DNA from an unknown source was recovered. The red high heels were tested for DNA, but the results were never disclosed publicly. Sherri had been identified, but her killer was not. Detective Tom Bean continued to work the case after her identification. The Walker County Sheriff's Office investigated whether she was connected to the Texas Killing Fields killer, a murderer who dumped bodies along Interstate 45 and nearby highways throughout the 1980s and 1990s. The timeline didn't align, the theory didn't hold, so the case remained open, active, waiting. What we know with certainty is that Sherri Ann Jarvis was a person. She loved children, animals, and horseback riding. She was in foster care, struggling with school. At 14 years old, she ran away. By Halloween night, she was in Texas. By November morning, she was dead. She was Sherri Ann Jarvis, daughter, sister, cousin, granddaughter, person. For 41 years, she was a question mark. Now she has a name. Walker County Sheriff Clint McRae said at the press conference, "We never like to refer to this case as a cold case. It has always been a top priority of our department. We loved her as well." The Walker County Jane Doe case showed what became possible with new DNA technology. Othram's forensic-grade genome sequencing could extract information from samples no one else could read. Genealogical databases populated by millions could point toward family trees. Since Sherri's identification in 2021, other cold cases have been solved the same way. But in Sherri's case, one mystery remains. Detective Tom Bean still works to find her killer. The Walker County Sheriff's Office still investigates leads, but her murderer has not been identified or prosecuted. Sherri Ann Jarvis was born on March 9, 1966. She died on November 1st, 1980, at age 14. She was sexually assaulted, strangled, abandoned on a highway. For 41 years, no one knew her name. Now they do. She was Sherri Ann Jarvis. She loved children, animals, and horseback riding. She was deprived of so many life experiences. She deserved better. And maybe someday, when someone's conscience finally breaks, or when new technology emerges, the last mystery will be solved. Until then, she has her name back.